Do you want to learn about what gets your motor going, how to get in touch with your desires, and how sexual energy can really shift through play? Well, listen in to this amazing conversation with Kayla Yoder, where she covers how she talks about this and so much more with clients. Hi, my name's Laura, and on this channel, I hope you achieve optimal health through knowledge and movement. Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yay. Good.
Can you
Perfect.
see me okay? I'm like,
Yes, I can see you.
okay, great.
This is awesome. So welcome. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you. And I just loved your Instagram takeover on Tuesday. I thought it was absolutely perfect and so amazing.
Thank you.
So you're welcome. So before we dive into all the questions and all the things, just in case people didn't get a chance to watch your takeover or they're watching this later on YouTube or something, can you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be here. I'm Kayla Yoder. I am a sex and intimacy coach. And yeah, I on the takeover, I kind of covered what steps you can take if you've been curious about exploring with women, which is kind of a vulnerable and taboo topic, not something we usually really talk about, but is something that I've heard from so many women is kind of a curiosity that they have. Anywhere from, yeah, just like I heard Katy Perry's song, I Kissed a Girl, and I've kind of wondered what it's been like ever since. Or, this is a desire I really strongly have. And that is kind of a niche that I've been exploring more recently. But I love talking about everything sex and intimacy. I think that it is like the key to unlocking the rest of our lives because as women, we like suppress so much and we kind of feel there's so much fear, there's so much shame, there's so much conditioning around sex and intimacy, especially for women, that if we can really like get clear and get vulnerable and communicate and feel confident in that area of our lives, then the rest of it just like cracks wide open. So I am super passionate about the
Yes.
topic. And yeah, I love having conversations around all aspects of sex and intimacy with men, women, with ourselves, all of it. So I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. So now one of the first questions that came in is how do you get into this line of work? So I think it's kind of twofold. One, like what was your education? And then I think two is, and what I always find interesting is how did you find your way to this work?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, to be honest, I this work found me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I it actually I sort of stumbled upon it. And I
Mm-hmm.
also then have been doing it like for a lot of my life in other ways as well. So, a lot of my education is actually my life experience. And I have
Oh,
done like some coaching programs and things like that to really like drill down into the niche and be able to serve more effectively. But I really
mm-hmm.
started doing this work because, well, first of all, I needed it. And
Mm-hmm. Yes.
yeah, and growing up, I always had an obsession with sex. And I grew up in a very conservative home and a conservative environment. And I didn't really, there wasn't a place for it, you know?
Mhm.
And like I was sent to the principal's office when I was in third grade for telling my friends what sex was because I had found out and I was like, oh my gosh, you know? And so
Oh my God.
I know. And so, in that regard, like I've kind of been talking to other people and like girls or women specifically about it for forever. Um, but for myself, I've always just been so curious, I've always explored kind of my desires, and I did it from a place of like shame or kind of wanting to keep it hidden and still present this like ladylike front. Wow, that might be a little far. Like I'm not sure I ever really like presented a ladylike front, but it was definitely something that I was a bit more taboo, or that I felt that and kind of kept it hidden. Um, and yeah, it developed into like more of an obsession with like sex and trying new things. And I thought that I was really great at the whole sex thing, and that I could just like kind of emotionally disconnect. I was like, oh, this is great. And it
Mm,
turns out I was actually just like terrified of intimacy. And and so that
interesting.
has been, yeah, so that has been a big part of my journey, is then, okay, like how can I take all of my desires and my curiosity and exploration around sex with different genders, in different places, like, all the different things that I could explore for
Yeah.
myself, but do it from a place of love and compassion for myself, for others, and really start to develop more intimacy. Um, and that rippled out to my like friendships as well. Once I started learning like the intimacy piece, it's amazing. Like, and I started to learn vulnerability like that.
Yes.
Vulnerability is like, but I think for when I really started doing that work myself, and then, that combined with my kind of curiosity and obsession with like sexual exploration, I started having a lot of women
Mhm.
actually come to me. Um, and and then and then the business was born.
There you go. So,
So,
yeah, so what
yeah.
does that, so when you're working with someone, what might that look like? Do they find you online? Do they yeah, how does that kind of look?
So it's been a kind of a variety of ways. But honestly, my biggest source of business is referrals. Um,
Hmm.
and I think like it makes a lot of sense that, we just don't talk about sex like publicly, and
Hmm.
so it's still sort of like oh, well, I have a friend and, we've never talked about sex like on this level, even in our friendship, but after working with you, like I'm gonna tell her about it, or kind of spreading
Yes.
the word that way. Um,
Yes.
yeah, and I mean I've gotten a couple clients from like workshops and things like that because I love
Cool.
speaking. Um, but yeah,
That's
most of the
awesome.
time it's just women talking to other women.
That's great. And so, do people come to you? Are they looking to? So, I know, like you said, you're talking a lot about sex or intimacy, vulnerability. Um, are they coming to specifically? So, like for me, a lot of times I'll have when it's in the sex realm, they're having pain with intercourse, difficulty orgasming, and we can really pinpoint it down to like a muscular dysfunction. Now, of course, a lot of times, as you know, there's that mental overlay. And so, of course, I love leaning on, all of my practitioners who can help with that mental aspect of things. But do you find that it's more people are wanting to explore sort of that sexuality piece, or are they coming because they have maybe pain or something like that?
Um, I think I mean, it's both. Um, you know,
Hmm.
I think for a lot of women, whether they want to explore their sexuality or just enjoy sex, there's something
Hmm.
keeping them from being able to have that experience, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And y- so it's sort of, I think when they come to probably either of us, it's like they've reached a point where enough is enough and they don't want to live like that anymore. And they want something more for their life. They want to experience more pleasure. They want to feel more free. And
Hmm.
then we can kind of use our expertise, you know, to either whether that is physical, or for me, I focus
Hmm.
more on the mental piece of really releasing whatever's happening, you know, like in their mind rather than their body, to
Right.
achieve that pleasure or the freedom or whatever is that they're looking for. Yeah.
Yes, totally. And how, so I know you shared some of it with the takeover, but and I'm sure it's different for everyone, but it's so interesting to me like how some people come in and you can tell their body language. Like I have some people who come in and they're like all kind of buttons up, legs crossed, kind of like, okay, what are you going to tell me? Versus like I have some people that come in and they're like, okay, let's do this, you know? And so it's fascinating how you can see that kind of come out in the conversation and how that kind of plays out with the stuff in the bedroom. How about for you? Do you feel like do you have to sometimes pull it from people or
Yes, 100%. You know, I like to start with like desire. Like, what do you want? You know, and like so often as
Mhm.
women too, we don't know what we want, you know, because we have been
Right.
conditioned to like not think about it, not ask for it, not pay attention to it because we might be too much, we might be high maintenance, right? So first, let's like
Yes.
figure out like what do you want, you know? And then from
Yes.
that place, yeah, like what's keeping you from having that? And I definitely find that some women come to me and they're like, I know exactly what's wrong. Like, I have commitment issues. Like, you know, feel unworthy of love and pleasure. Like, I believe that this is bad or whatever, right? Some women are so clear and they're like, yes, like, help. Like, I haven't been able to release this on
Right.
my own. And some women are like,
Right.
oh, help me figure it out. And that's also so beautiful and
Yes.
so perfect. Um, but yeah, it totally ranges for me too.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's so fascinating like again tying into like what people like kind of how they demonstrate in their body language when you were saying like asking someone what do you desire, one of the like exercises I'll have people do is I will say like what type of food do you like to eat? If you're going to go out to eat with your partner or even by yourself, what type of food do you like to eat? Well, I mean, I don't know, like whatever they want to do. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Do you want sushi? No, I don't want sushi. Okay. So you have a pretty strong opinion about that. Or like, yes, I love sushi. I want sushi, you know? So it's very, um, again, like as you're talking about these things with desire, and for people who are listening, sometimes when we think about it with sex, it might be, I think, hard for people to conceptualize, but it can be something as, you know, as, yeah, like, do you know what kind of food you want? Do you know what your preference is for what type of clothes you want to wear, or how you want your hair, or how this, or how that? And like, as you start to piece these things away for people, it's like, they're like, oh, wait, I guess I don't know this. Or talking about, like you said, the vulnerability piece. I thought it was so interesting how you said when you did the vulnerability work, how much it expanded with even your friendships. And it's so fascinating to me what people are willing to say or share with their partner or their friends versus what they're not. Whereas sometimes I feel like I'll say to people, and I'm like, you always ask me what's going on, and I always feel like the crazy friend because I'm telling you like all of the things. And then I ask you what's going on in your life, and you're like, everything's great. And then after like 4 hours of conversation, you then tell me like, oh, hey, I guess everything's not great, or I had this struggle or whatever. And I'm like, you got to give me something, you know? So I let all those things that you're touching on, again, for people who are listening or just joining, when you start to like wrap your mind around this, it can be these little cues of like, oh, maybe I'm that person that isn't so willing to go deep with some people that really have gained and earned that trust. Or maybe it is hard for me to voice what I need.
Yeah. I I think that's so true, and we can be so blissfully unaware because especially if we grow up in circles or in families that it's like very surface level and we only talk about like the good things or we only talk about, just kind of that high level, like, how's the weather? Like, okay, then
Yes.
it can be really hard to break out of that and to feel like it's okay and even something to be valued when you do have like those deeper conversations and that vulnerability in relationships. Um, but yeah, it could
Yes.
be like such a big mental shift and really tough.
Yes. So I'm interested to know, with all of this work that you're doing, how is that received within your family group? Because one of the things I like talking about on here with my Instagram Live is I love knowing, and many of the women that I talk to are entrepreneurs, obviously. And so I love also kind of hearing, how has some of this played out? Because I'll tell you what, my family doesn't quite understand what the hell I'm doing. So I'm interested to know how, like you were saying, as you talk about this stuff, how is that received in your family?
Yeah, well, I will say I've like primed them well. I have kind
Yes.
of, I kind of believe that most of us, like when we start hitting like our teenage years and we want to be liked, we want to fit in, or like, we start adjusting who we are based on society. We
Mm-hmm.
usually go one of two ways. It's either like we conform or we rebel completely, but they're both externally driven behaviors, right? Like they're both based on societal
Mm-hmm.
expectations. And I was the rebel side. So I have made a lot of decisions in my life and done a lot of things kind of based on, how I was different or how I could go against the grain. And which is not a healthy, again, this is still externally driven, like not a healthy mechanism. Um, but I think because of that, my family, I don't think I could.
Oh,
Sorry.
that's
My
okay. It cut
Instagram
out
was,
there for a second.
yeah, my Instagram told me my time limit for today was up. I was like, no. Um,
You're like, no, it's not. So it
it's
cut
not
out
up.
just, you said that you primed them, and then you had said that you like rebelled, and like right when you got to your point, it was like gone. And I was like, no.
No. Yeah, so I'm not really sure that I could do anything that would shock them. So
Ah, yes.
I've got that going for me. But yeah, my family's
Mm-hmm.
been great. They've been super, super supportive. Um, I think it's definitely been challenging at times.
Mm-hmm.
Especially my mom is definitely pretty conservative, and I know how much she loves me and supports me and is really happy for me that I'm doing something that's fulfilling. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I stayed with her I love this story so much. I was staying with her for a bit at the beginning of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and I was building like a visualization tool for a workshop. And it was about like getting in touch with what really turns you on before, during, and after sex.
Hmm.
And oh, I actually mentioned it in the takeover.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I was like recording that, and I
Hmm.
had this moment of like, I ran into the kitchen and I was like, Mom, what if somebody spontaneously orgasms on my workshop? And and she was like,
What?
Kayla, like that would be quite interesting. And also, like, if that's what you want, great. But like, can you give me a little bit more of a heads up before you just run in the
Right.
room and start screaming orgasm? And
Right.
that's kind of like the perfect example of, like how she feels about the work that I'm doing. Like, so supportive, so happy for me.
Yes.
And same with my dad. And, but it's definitely like, hold on, I need a second to adjust,
Right.
So,
Right. I
yeah.
love it. I love it. And do you find when you are working with women and you're doing these workshops, do you think that a lot of this, the I don't know if this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of the undoing or maybe the revealing that you have to work on with them is because of how they were raised and developed, or raised and then how they developed?
Yes, but I also think that that's true for every single one of us.
Okay.
Um, so, you know, as women, we're so bombarded with media, I mean, all of us are, but,
Right.
and especially in the US, um,
Hmm.
like we're just, and with body image, I mean, even that
Hmm.
alone is such a big piece of sex, intimacy, confidence, embracing being a woman. Like, there's so much that we've picked
Hmm.
up, whether it is from our family or the community we grew up in, or even if
Hmm.
we grew up in a super liberal environment that was like super sex positive, we still have been
Right.
receiving all these messages about what it is to be sexy or what it isn't to be sexy, or
Hmm.
what, like, what we should look like, what we shouldn't. Like, all the shoulds are still like
Yes.
so inundated, So yeah, so yes, but also I think that literally all of us have that.
Right. Right. I can totally see that. And um, when you were talking about body image, I have been working on this new thing the last couple of weeks where I've had clients do, I'm like, I want you to get juicy. And what that means is I want them to like move their body and like, kind of just move it. And like, cause I'll do a lot of yoga based stuff, but still I feel like with the yoga, yeah, they're still very
I'm like,
like,
yeah, like I want to
I'm
get
like, okay, I want you to
juicy.
cat. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, doesn't it make total sense? Like you're like, okay, yeah, but like they'll go. I'll tell them to do like cat cow, and they're very much like cat cow, and I'm like, okay, you can like move outside of this, and I'll be like, roll your hips, and like it was it was like they were like, and I'm like, okay, your homework is to go home, and I want you to just keep thinking juicy. And like it was so interesting, but it was like, and they're like, how are you able to do this? And I'm like, well, because I'm a physical therapist and I think about movement all day long. But like, I also kind of have been trying to unpack and be like, well, why can I do this with my body? But I feel a lot of comfort in my body. So it was just, so when you were talking about body image and all of those things, it's like I then think about those same individuals I'm talking about, they're having a lot of sexual dysfunction. So I can imagine if it's hard to feel juicy fully clothed, and I even closed my eyes and said I won't look at you, and it's like they just were like couldn't do it. And so it's yeah.
Yeah. I think. like we also become so disconnected from our bodies in our, especially in our Western culture. And we're so in
Mhm.
our heads and so out of our bodies. We like, I, I feel like it's even as simple as how often do you pee as soon as you have the urge to pee? Like,
Ah,
how often do
yes.
we like, so we're so disconnected from like what our body wants, what our body needs. And we often just, even if we don't have body image issues, which I'm not sure I've ever met a woman who doesn't, but like
Right.
that aside, we're so disconnected. And I've actually been considering this over the last couple weeks is, it's one thing to feel comfortable in your body, but does your does your body actually feel safe and comfortable with you? Like what are the
Mm.
messages that you send your body that make it not necessarily feel comfortable and safe with you? So, like holding your
Yes.
pee, like for hours because you're
Yes.
sending emails or something, like, and so there's probably a
Yes.
lot of disconnection and like distrust both ways and all
Mhm.
the angst, and I
Yes.
imagine that all of that buildup makes it really hard to like work, kind of move your body around and cat
Yes.
cow with your hips and like, flow with it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it's just, again, it's so, like you were just like, yeah, I want to get juicy. And it's like, I can already see, like, you can just like do it. And so it's just like, it's a thing that like I want to do more of. I want to encourage people to do more of. And I love, like you were saying, how it's a two-way street with like, our body has to feel safe. Like, I really, really like that. So, how do you, when you're asking people to get kind of in touch with some of this stuff, what are some things that maybe you ask them to do?
So I think it kind of depends on the person, right? But
Mhm.
one thing that I love encouraging my clients to do is spend time naked. Like
Oh, that's
just be
awesome.
naked. And like not,
Hmm.
not just when you're having sex because, like just be comfortable naked. And it's usually wildly
Yes.
uncomfortable at first, right? Because we don't really spend time naked and in our bodies like that. So it can be super uncomfortable. But I think
Yeah.
doing that really, really helps. Um,
Hmm.
I also think that doing more like embodied activities, right? Like yoga, or even
Hmm.
like after you get out of the shower, like instead of, even if you moisturize, instead of like, oh, I'm gonna do a quick moisturizing, and then throw my clothes on, like take even 5 minutes and like get the coconut oil and just like massage your body and just like feel your body
Yes.
and love it and give it time and attention and
Hmm.
um some of those things can just be small little adjustments that you make to your day to day.
I
Um,
I love that.
yeah. Yeah, what
Yeah,
about for you?
I really, so I love that you said the spend time naked because like it is, because I like for some reason have this thing where I love having like no dirty laundry. Like I love having like not one piece of dirty laundry. And so I will then have to walk around the house naked and like because it's like not even my clothes. And so like my boyfriend will sometimes be like, okay, like we have these huge windows and we're by a road that's quite busy. And like, even though I try to close the windows, I have these shades that like you can kind of see through in the kitchen. And I'm just like, but it's so nice to lay in bed and know that I don't have one piece of laundry to do. And so but I haven't done that in so long because I've been working at home. And so, like, my home has also kind of become my office. So, when you were saying that, I was just like, when have I hung out naked? Like I haven't, because it's sort of like my whole home has sort of morphed into this office space, but it's not, it's my home. So I just, yeah, that just like kind of blew my mind right there. So I have done the telling people to do the massage thing as well. And I think that's so awesome. I ask people to stop and do deep breathing for 5 minutes a couple times a day.
Mm.
Like not with like I not even with music on, not even like a guided meditation. I'll tell people like if you're a parent and you're driving home, or if you're like going out to run errands, if you can like park somewhere and before you like get to the chaos and the craziness, and like just stop and be in your car and just like breathe for 5 minutes. Um and like stop and pause. So that's one that I try to have people like add in, or mindfully brushing their teeth. So like trying to really feel the toothbrush on their teeth and then feel like their hand holding the toothbrush and like that. I don't know. It's I try to like figure out how to weave it into something they've already done. But those are things that I've tried with people.
Yeah, that's so
So,
interesting. I mean, I feel like, yeah, there's so many things that I feel like are beneficial to that and getting you more into your body. But I love, you know, yeah, like integrating into what you already do, like it's something that you already
right.
have as a routine, just like take a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
extra time because I think that is so much more manageable
Yeah.
for people. Yeah.
Right. Right. I agree. And I also think it's like again, like getting back to some of the family stuff and some of the like just how we are in society, like we don't really value taking, at least I was not taught by my family to necessarily value rest and ease and comfort. Um, and like it wasn't always, it's not been something that's been like, oh, okay, like taking that time for yourself to put lotion on or get the fancier lotion. Like that was like only after Christmas when you got like the Bath and Body Works stuff or whatever. And so it's kind of interesting to create that shift. And it's been a lot of work in creating the shift for myself to then be able to pass it on to patients and to others.
Yeah, for me too. So much. I definitely was not brought up that way either. It's like very action oriented, goal oriented, on to the next thing, right? And that's kind of like how our society is too, right? It's like we measure
Yes.
like the success or like, we measure each day by how productive we were. It's like, how do you
Yes.
feel? Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. Yes. And that's why it's sometimes interesting to me when I'll tell people to do some of these mindfulness things and I'm like, man, a mindfulness thing sounds really good. Like I should probably do it. Like just like when you were saying the naked thing, it was just like that hit me like a train. I was like, well, there you go. And even when you were doing the takeover with stuff, talking about exploring with women um, and like you said, that Katy Perry song and all of those things, I just think of like how many people maybe heard that song and thought like, yeah, is that something that I liked or would like? Or when you were doing the takeover, it's like, I was thinking about that and it's like, huh, yeah, I guess I never thought about that. But then, like, if I think about my family and all of that stuff, and so it's kind of fun to like take it in and be like, is that something that I would want now? I don't know. And I really liked how I felt like for me at least, it brought up a lot of like, some introspection, which is super great.
Yeah, I think that's one of my like favorite things about like what I do collaborating with other women like we are
Mhm.
now. And it's like there's always an opportunity to hear something in a different way or to, you know, do your own like kind of reflection of like, huh. Um, because there's so much. I feel like there's so much that we can always just
Mhm.
learn. And yeah, it's sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, like is life even enough time? Because I feel like, you know, there's always
Yes.
more. But at the same time, if there wasn't always
Mhm.
more, life would get kind of boring. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yes, totally, 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 totally. So for you, how do you, as someone who does this work and can deal with some really heavy stuff and is asking people to really kind of push their limits, how do you work to keep yourself kind of grounded, centered, not always in that to-do list? Because I'm very much right now, I am very much in the to-do list. I have discovered Trello. It has boards. I can create lists. I can create lists upon lists upon lists. I can create lists for other people on my team. And the last 3 weeks have been like too much. And so, like, I'm trying to unpeel starting next week. And so, I'm interested, how do you kind of stay grounded in this awesomeness that you're describing?
Well, I've picked up some tactics. I also know what some of my red flags are because I like go back to that task oriented,
Mhm.
action oriented space that you're talking about. Like
Yes.
I'm I'm sure I feel like I'm coming kind of out of one right now, to be honest, you know, but I'm sure it'll
Yes.
happen
Yeah.
again. Um,
Hmm.
so some things it's actually kind of funny that you asked me this because I was trying to make a list of like my red flags of like when to catch myself sooner.
Yeah.
Um, and the biggest thing, so first of all, my morning routine is like crucial. I spend like 2 hours in a morning routine. Um,
Awesome. Hmm.
and yeah, but I've I've come to realize like when I cut it short, you know, where I'm like, oh yeah, like I'll take a call earlier in the day when I'm not quite ready. The cycle starts, you know. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
So for me, like that's crucial. And then also
Hmm.
I notice that when I'm go, 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 I lose my sense of playfulness and I lose my sense of like being silly. And so that's
Hmm.
like the biggest thing for me. And so I actually have been doing like making it a point every day to like do something silly or like go be playful or
Oh,
just do
cool.
something for pure fun to keep me
Yeah.
from, I think that's like my biggest way to combat that. Because like I'm definitely
Yeah.
drawn to that mindset and that cycle very, very easily.
Yes.
So yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So what are some of the your go-to things to be playful and fun?
Well, one of them I've actually integrated into my morning routine, which is
Yeah.
a dance party. I have a dance
Fun.
party by myself every morning. And
That's
sometimes
awesome.
if I feel like more, yeah, throughout the day. Um,
Yeah.
and then it's been raining a lot here. And one of my favorite things to do
Hmm.
is like frolic and dance in the rain. So I've been doing that.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and like I think the spontaneity around the playfulness too is like such a big piece, you know? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I mean sometimes it's like could even just be like making sure I'm treating myself to like ice cream or like something that I love, but most of the time physical
Yeah.
activity combined with like just because that helps ground me in my body.
Yes.
And then being
Yeah.
like playful with it. And I grew up as a dancer. So
Okay, cool.
dancing is my absolute favorite way to like express everything. So whether that is being silly or like
Yeah.
moving through emotions, I like use that as a form
Hmm.
of healing as well. It's like it's my most powerful tool, like for myself personally. So yeah.
That is so awesome. I really like those. I think dancing and like even being able to connect to music, because I'm sure there are certain songs where it's like you just know you can go to that song or go to that genre and it's just like it's on. This is so great. You can get some of that juicy going, you know. That's really,
Mhm.
yes, that's so cool. I think do you think like our society has devalued play for like adults and um or just like maybe humans in general?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think the focus, um, especially in the US, I think the focus is really like, what have you accomplished? And that is where your value to society comes from. And
Hmm.
that doesn't leave a lot of room or encouragement for play and fun.
No,
And
no.
I'm like, life is too short, man. Like,
Right,
like let's have
right,
some fun while we're
right.
here. Like, I, yeah.
And so now, for anyone again listening, you are currently not in the United States. You are in, share with everyone where you are.
I'm living in Mexico City right now.
I think that's so awesome. That is so great. So, have you, I'm like so jealous. Like, I'm just like, I'm so jealous. So, that is so awesome. So, like, have you noticed being there, have some of those stark differences of like what it's like being there versus the United States been even more kind of in your face?
Yeah. So I've been traveling for almost 3 years now, like outside of the
Mm-hmm.
US. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I came back for at the beginning of COVID. I was in Asia, and so that was not a great place to be at the beginning of the
Yeah.
pandemic. And I am very close with my family, so I came back for that and to spend some time with them. And it
Mm-hmm.
was the longest amount of time I've been in the US for several years, and it was reverse culture
Yeah.
shock. Um,
Wow.
yeah, like there's like everyone's so tense. Like there's a lot there's a lot of energy. I mean, it's hard with the pandemic. Like there's a lot happening and a
Yes.
lot of grief and a lot of sadness and a lot of like anxiety. So I'm sure that like was also in there, but I have definitely noticed um and I kind of I have this theory that the US is like still such a teenager as a country in comparison to a lot of other countries. And,
Mm-hmm.
like I think it kind of demonstrates so well like our life cycle, often when we're young, like we're like go, 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 like achieve, figure it out. And then, kind of
Yes.
as we do get older, like we settle in a little bit more. We start to realize that we want to enjoy life and we want to value other things besides success and productivity.
Right.
And I think that the US is just in a young country that has that energy, which isn't
Right.
necessarily a bad thing, but I think it does make it really hard for us to embrace and prioritize playfulness. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that's really, really fascinating. I think that's so I have been fortunate to travel abroad. The longest I've been abroad is 3 weeks. And that was in college, and I did this like we went to a bunch of different countries, and then we were in like London area for a week. And it was so amazing to me how many people like over lunch would like actually take their lunch break. And then and that's one of the reasons why I was working at a major medical institution, Mayo Clinic, up until January of this year, and then I left because I was working 13 hours above what I was getting paid for. So I was working 13, so I was working my 3 days a week, and that's what I was getting paid for. But then in addition to that, on average, I was working 13 hours for that company for free. And I kept telling them, this isn't okay. This has to be illegal. And what was so fascinating to me was how they came back and they said, oh, no, 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 we pay you to get a job done. So if the job takes you 80 hours to get done, you will do 80 hours to get it done, but we will still only pay you for your 24 hours. And I'm like, how is that legal and okay? And I did talk to lawyers, and it turns out that as an employee, I have no rights. And I was just like, I can't do this forever. I just, like, it was hurting my soul. And I was going to counseling, and one of the things the counselor asked me was like, well, what do you do for fun? And I was like, well, I work out. And she was like, well, is that fun, or is that something that you feel you have to do, like flossing your teeth? And I was like, well, like, yeah, it is kind of fun, but like as a physical therapist, I know it's like one of the things I have to do. So it's kind of more like flossing my teeth. And she was like, okay, like what do you do that brings you joy? And I was like, and I couldn't answer it. It was like my brain was like dead, like, you know, like a just like the line. And so that's why when you were saying just all of the stuff, and I think that's why I just loved your takeover so much, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about this stuff in that way, or I didn't do this. And it's been quite a challenging shift for me to go from a very high I think lots of places are high achieving, but like a place that values that, and it was driven into me since 2009, to then go to now I'm my own boss, and like, okay, what does that look like for you? And how can you, because it's like our default mode, at least for me. And that's like, it's very easy for me to go into work, strive, do this. It's very hard for me to be like, be playful, lay around naked, like do this, do that. So, yeah, so I just like like I said, my brain is just like constantly being blown by this stuff. And I feel like lots of times I'm so much in the work with my clients, like we're very much, I just might be a little bit further along because my mind's just like constantly being blown, and I can like teach them and talk about it. But if you look at my own life, like I still very much struggle in finding that playfulness or that groundedness or those things. But it is, I think, challenging in a culture where everyone around you is still very much striving. And then I might be like the weird person that's like, I slept in until 9 today. And then I had this lovely morning routine. And I took like an additional shower today. And then I, you know, was working with my essential oils. And like my friends are like, excuse me, what were you doing? Like, what, are you a crazy person? And I was like, yeah. And I just like went out to the ground and I like earthed for a while. And they're just like, excuse me, what? So I think that's been something. So I can totally, everything that you were saying about like how America and we're very much striving versus like that time that I think when I was in London, and to like go out, and I just think back of that time of going out and having lunch and like sitting and enjoying people and seeing people walk around, and they were like business people, and it was like a Tuesday and there was a lot of them out, like, and it was just so much different than it is here where it's, yeah, it's like I feel like we're on like uppers or something all the time.
Yeah, one way that I kind of like to put it is that we're human beings. We're not human
Yeah.
doings, but we act like human
Yes.
doings like
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Totally. Totally. And so, yeah, so I think it would be so interesting. And it's killing me with COVID that I can't like just go track. Like, one of the reasons why I wanted to work for myself was so that I could travel. And it's like killing me that, like, with this COVID stuff, that like borders are closed and this is closed and that's closed. And if you go, then you need to quarantine and all of that, this stuff that's going on. And so when I was asking you for your address and you were like, I'm in Mexico City and I'm here, I was like, oh my God, I'm so jealous.
Come to Mexico City. The border's not closed.
Yeah. So how long do you stay? Like, how long will you stay there in Mexico
Um,
City?
Unclear. Um, I haven't
Yeah.
I haven't
Okay.
bought a round trip ticket in 3 years. So I
Wow.
basically am waiting. I mean, but it's also, I mean, it's amazing, but like everything I own is in a suitcase. Like I do live in
Right.
Airbnbs, and it is also super freeing to not have a bunch of stuff because we don't actually need that much stuff. But
Right.
um
Right.
but yeah, so I'm kind of waiting to see what borders open and where I can go,
Mhm.
and also wanting to maybe stay close for the holidays. Um, so I'm not sure. I'm planning to be here
That's
for at
so
least
cool.
another few months, but yeah, yeah.
That is really, that is really, I think that's so, I just think that's cool. You do you. I love it.
Thank
So,
you.
so do you, yeah, so do you predominantly do like workshops? Do you predominantly do like one-on-one work with people? Does it just kind of vary?
Yeah, so I do one-on-one coaching. I'm also starting a group program in September, and I'm really, really excited about
Uh-huh.
that. Like female, like feminine energy in a group, and like pussy power is real. Like,
Yes.
that is like real, and I'm
Yes.
so excited for that.
Yes.
Um, so and yeah, like I do workshops. It's been kind of inconsistent recently. I think just life in general has been kind of inconsistent recently.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so I also offer free workshops, usually like about once a month, for just like,
That's so awesome.
yeah, but that's kind of the way things are going. Oh, I also have a podcast. I forgot. I forgot
Yes,
for a
I was
second that I
seeing
had a
that.
podcast.
That was, yeah,
Yeah.
that is so cool. How often is that? Because I was like looking through your posts and all that. And how often do you do your podcast?
So I release an episode every Wednesday. Um, so
Okay.
yeah, today is today? No, yesterday. Yesterday was Wednesday. Yesterday I released
Yeah.
episode number 7. So it's still pretty new, but it's been like absolutely feeding my soul. I basically just get the pleasure of talking to so many different women about their stories and their journeys and how they've overcome different things and just all about their experience. And, with the hopes that someone listening will resonate, say me too, and it'll like empower them to kind of reclaim their own personal power. Because I think there's so many women who will probably not come to us. They will not come to our workshops. They will not come to our, like they
Right.
won't pick up the phone and call. Um, and that's like perfectly okay also, and like wonderful and beautiful just as it is. But I love the podcast because I think that that's a way to kind of reach those women, who might not quite be ready
Yes.
to take a bigger plunge.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
what about you? You do a ton of
So
workshops.
that's,
Oh,
Yeah, so what you were saying, that's like one of the reasons why I started doing these Thursday happy hours and the Tuesday takeovers is because I love listening to podcasts. I love watching things on YouTube. I love following people on Instagram. And so when I was seeing such a high volume of patients at Mayo Clinic, I would be telling all about these amazing humans that I was coming into contact with in these different avenues. And I would tell like a 75-year-old person that I found you on Instagram. And they would be like, well, I'm not on Instagram. So one of my missions for when I left Mayo was I wanted to be active on lots of different platforms. So like one of the things that we'll do with this is I have a person who will download it, will edit it, and we'll put it up on YouTube. And then and I'll send it to you, of course, but if I talk to someone and I'm like, hey, I think that some of the topics we covered are really important to you, or I think that you would really connect with this provider, I can send that YouTube link to them. And so it's like you're just hitting people from all of these different avenues. Um, and so selfishly, even though I just love getting a chance and excuse to talk to amazing women, I like also wanted to be able to create more of a connection. And what's been beautiful for me, and also like kind of a little bit of a mind wonk, is like when I was talking to you, I just assumed you were in the United States. And I was just like, oh, this is perfect. Like, I'm just like thinking when COVID is over, I can just like go and I just want to do this like United States tour to go see all of these people that I've like connected with, because they're just like all over the United States, except some of the people that I've connected with now are like outside of the United States, which is fine. And I love traveling outside of the United States, but it's just like, so it's like I get like so close with all of these people and everyone's all over the place, which is great and lovely, but also, I just want you to be like close to me too. So yeah, so I think that it's just been really wonderful, and I'm just so grateful that you were able to take the time to talk to me. And I can't wait to like blast all of your platform stuff and your podcast. And like I said, I saw that on your Instagram and I'm like, I need to download this and listen to it, because I listened to some snippets and it just seems so beautiful.
It's Thank
So
you. It's definitely cool and also juicy. And I'm like, when you said that, I was like,
juicy.
that's what I think. That's like the word I use for like my podcast. Is It's juicy. Yeah.
Yay! That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Well, it has been so amazing talking with you. You are, I know, a wealth of knowledge, and I loved your takeover. And maybe if you have time, we can have you do another takeover, because I certainly learned a lot and I would love to continue to talk with you more.
That would be amazing. It has been so much fun. And I'm so glad that we connected as well. I'm really excited to see how our relationship grows. And I really appreciate you, yeah, initiating this collaboration. It's been really great.
Yes, thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your night, and I will talk to you later.
Bye.